Blanca, we good to go? All right, it's 4 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting of the Economic Development Corporation to order. Blanca, if you can establish quorum, please.
Yes. Hiren Govin, President.
Present.
Roland Gomez, Vice President. Daniel Dan Diaz, Secretary.
Present.
Aaron Ronnie Rivera, Treasurer.
Present.
Veronica Gonzalez, Director. Sabrina Walker Hernandez, Director. Present. Raul Resendez, Director.
Present.
And we have quorum.
Excellent. If you could certify public notice as well, please.
Yes, the notice was posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act on June 25th at 1:27 p.m.
I'd like to open up the floor to public comments. Do we have anybody on the phone or on Zoom that wants to make any comments or that registered? No. Does anybody on the floor here like to make any comments? No? All right. I will close public comments. Moving on to the director's report.
Yes, a couple of updates. We do have new businesses in Edinburg. We have a list. Shake Express Juices is among us. Some of them expanded from other cities to Edinburg. Caporal Restaurant, 39 Taqueria, among others. We do have two projects that are currently, one of them is currently closing right now. So Campos Bros Produce is in the process of being closed today or tomorrow. So that's very good news. We have about 14 prospects that we continue to speak to on an ongoing basis, on a daily basis. We have several expansions on the way, relocations, and new businesses that are looking to move or expand into Edinburg. The retail development still is ongoing. We have three very strong prospects in the full-service restaurant arena, other spectator sports industry, and theaters, amusement, games, and dining. And we're currently in conversations with them to see if they'll be coming to Edinburg. And another interesting note, we sent letters, congratulatory letters, to 49 Fortune 500 businesses in Texas, letting them know where Edinburg, Texas is, and if they're looking to visit or expand their operations into our city, to please contact our office. So we mailed that out this week on Monday. So hopefully we hear back from a couple of those companies. The programs that are ongoing, we're still meeting with businesses for our business retention and expansion program. We talk to manufacturing companies, healthcare companies, education companies that are looking to expand into Edinburg, and other utilities and accommodation and food service. And that's also on an ongoing basis. The Health Science and Institute at Renaissance, HSIR, they're currently in their summer program, and we do have an update. One student did withdraw from the program, unfortunately, but we are working to communicate with the student and see if they can continue the program for the fall as well. So more updates on that. The marketing services, as you know, our landing page was launched in May. And our full website will be launched next month, and we'll showcase that to the board once it's ready to be launched and showcased along with a business profile and our marquee video. An update on the real estate services, Coldwell Banker Commercial RGV. They are currently working with us on different properties and inquiries that we are receiving from retail, from industrial, working on our North Industrial Park as well to expand that and market that. Just wanted to provide an update on that. They're very busy. Every day we almost get an inquiry. And a real quick update on Spark 3.0. We're currently finalizing the process to announce to the business community how they'll be eligible, but also to our residents for the Community to Business program, and that hopefully in the next month we'll have more updates on that. If we finalize things this month, we can launch very soon. And then the Economic Development Project dashboard, that lives on the city website and hopefully will soon live in our Economic Development website. A quick update, Hadar Properties, GRH Investments, LLC, and Los Pinos Hardware incentive projects, economic development incentive projects have been completed. So that's good news. They've received their incentives in full, and we've verified that they've done the job creation and the capital investment proof and any site improvements that they said they were going to do. And then a quick update on the food truck park. That will be this Friday, starting at 6 p.m. And just a note, we have added 3 new vendors, Chewy's Custom Crafts, Oh My Clog, and Route 83 Candle Company. And we have reached about 400 attendees now in the food truck park. So that's growing, and we hope to get more attendees in the coming food truck parks, especially now that it's summer. I know it's hot, but it's something to do and listen to live music. And then some updates on our request for information, RFIs with the state. We submitted 3 of those. We're waiting to hear back from the state, but hopefully any site from our North Industrial Park gets a callback, and we can start conversations with that as well. That completes my update. Thank you.
I have a quick question on DCI next month. Whenever we get presented the website, can they give us like a quick presentation on where they're at, how things are going, projects still on pace, et cetera, et cetera?
Yes, we can schedule that with the website launch. Maybe they can walk the board through all the pages and the videos and the stats and how they can get a hold of our office as well. We are planning to meet with them very soon to discuss any updates or changes, so hopefully we can schedule that with the board.
Great.
Yeah, Blanca, on those Fortune 500 company letters that were sent out, is there a way for us to get a listing of those companies and also if it went to a particular person at the organization?
Yes, we have a list of the businesses. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Blanca, thank you for the presentation. On a couple questions. On the Buxton project, are we at liberty to say what vendors or businesses we're actually talking to?
So if you have any questions about any of those ongoing negotiation or discussions, I'd suggest we do that in executive.
Awesome. Okay. And on the real estate, I've had several people call me and ask me how they can get their properties listed. I've always referred them to the office. Have we had any traction on that? I've had 3 or 4 different citizens that say, hey, we've got property, we think it'd be good for development. How can we get it on the EDC's website or get businesses to know that we have this property available?
Yes, we get inquiries on the daily, every day, multiple inquiries. So yeah, they can email me or they can email staff. We do have a general email that's economicdevelopment@cityofedinburg.com that they can always email, and I get those emails so we can look at them and connect them with our broker as well.
I'm wondering if just like the city update, maybe we can do a little segment of EDC saying, hey, any of you guys having any properties or commercial locations that you want to present or offer up to businesses to come to the city. Just I get a lot of calls, and I always refer. I just never had a chance to really follow up.
Yeah. We'll also have some functionality on the website to list properties in a database format.
On the food trucks, we're still keeping the same number of food options. We had several people ask if we're going to get more food trucks, more options, because it's been a great success. The lines are always long. Is there a plan to expand
Yeah,
that?
the Cultural Arts Department is continually, for lack of a better word, hustling other food truck parks, even visiting others to bring them over here and reminding them that we've waived the fees. I believe that's still the end of the fiscal year to bring them over.
So there isn't a limit of trucks or anything, so we could try to
There's what?
There isn't a limit of how many trucks?
No. We
Oh,
have
really?
we have the space. We can make the space. I know for the past event that we just had, just slipped me which one we just had. Not the food truck event, but the Juneteenth Jubilee. We had a few new trucks from other cities, and we kind of work with them, and they'll be starting to show up from the food trucks. So, and we did order also, because we know we do have misters out there, but we ordered some individual cooling stations. Those should be coming sometime mid-July.
Ron, I have a question. How much more space do we have available? Is there just a bunch of it, like for about 10 or more food truck?
We can, we have the entire promenade, and now that we've cleared out that back land, we can get creative. So if we have the interest, we won't turn anybody away. So what Magdiel with Cultural Arts does try to do is he doesn't want much overlap of the same exact type of food, and that kind of makes sense. But we monitor the lines. It kind of just depends when you get there. One thing that we will do, and this was always kind of by design, because right now it is real nominal for the food trucks to be there. I think it's $20, $25. So I think we had said it for the first 6 months that those will be going up. Those rates will incrementally be going up just a little bit. So, and that's kind of, that's just in fairness because they're all selling out. So, but by no means will prevent another one from coming over. So really it's about some of the electrical connections, and we're kind of working with some of those to figure that out.
When we do the price increase, are y'all thinking about doing like maybe, hey, pay 6 months in advance and keep the same price or something?
We can look at different options like that, but one thing, because they actually file for a permit every time, so we've streamlined some ways to make that faster. I think that was some of the hiccup at the beginning. So, but now that's a pretty easy process.
You mentioned 400 attendees. Is that
Veronica, push the.
There you go. The 400 attendees that you mentioned, is that at each event, or is that overall for the events we've had to now?
At each event.
At each event.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we went from about 300 to about over 400 in the last two.
That's a good number of people. So I guess it's because it's over several hours, so people come and go, and yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah, we're trying to shape every event to have somewhat of an individual feel. I know the last time was the unveiling of the pet-friendly city, so that had a very dog-centric type. And then this one, in collaboration with the chamber, it's the pre-party for the Texas Cook'em. So there's going to be a specific band for that and all that. So that, with it to have its own little character generates a little bit different crowd every time. So that's kind of cool.
Cool.
Anybody else? Thank you very much, Blanca. All right, moving on to regular agenda items. Agenda E, consider the approval of the minutes for the May 25th board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Agenda item B, consider the approval of the financial report for May 21st. Do we have Christian on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
How's it going, Christian? You doing good today?
Yes, I am. Thank you. All right, so we got the management report here for the period ended May 31, 2021. We're going to be talking about the statement of cash receipts and disbursements. Then we're also going to talk about the half-cent sales tax comparison to prior years. And then we're going to quickly talk about the balance sheet and accounts receivable. All right, the first report is the primary report. Is that blank or?
Give me 1 second,
Okay.
Chris.
Yeah. I have a copy if I can.
Yeah, if you don't mind sharing your screen, that'd be easier.
Oh, is sharing my screen? Let's see if I can share my screen.
I have, okay, I got it. One second.
Okay.
It's better.
Perfect. All righty. Looks like we got it going. Yes, so first report, the primary report, is going to be the statement of cash receipts, disbursements, and cash balances. For the month of May, we collected $727,000 from the March sales tax, and we collected $7,000. Well, if we compare that to year-to-date, we have $4.8 million year-to-date, and our annual budget was for $6.5 million. So we're about 74% there. Our interest income is getting lower and lower by the month. Year-to-date, we have $8,274. We collected $351 last month. And, we originally budgeted for $25,000. Now, obviously, with the interest rates going down, we're not going to make that there. So overall, total cash receipts, $735,000. Cash disbursements, some of the highlights. We spent $250,000. Yeah, that's to the city of Edinburg for salaries and benefits and taxes. Contractual maintenance, $320 for equipment leasing. Programs, we have $33,700 in marketing. $15,000 in sponsorships and donations. Then we have purchases, I think escrow for $10,000 for purchase of property. And the next page, so overall we have a $418,000 increase in cash during the month of May. We overall unrestricted cash balance is $7.8 million. Then below, this is our total cash. You can see the estimated annual yield rates on the interest for the sweep account is still at 0.051%. And then towards the bottom, the interest-bearing accounts, the Techstars, that just keeps dramatically going down further and further, where it's almost nothing there, 0.01%. So overall, total cash, $19.7 million. Any questions about the statement of cash receipts and disbursements? Okay. The next page is going to be the comparison to the prior year, and you'll see that, so this is actual earnings, okay? So this is not what we collected, but so in the month of April, 2 months ago, we earned $641,000. Compare that to 2020 fiscal year, it was almost $500,000. So we have a difference of $144,000, a 26% increase. The year month before that was 31%. So this is actually COVID months. This is really, April was really the full month of COVID season. So you can see that the people were still buying there in Edinburg. Any questions about this comparative monthly sales tax revenues? Okay, the next page is going to be the balance sheet. We got $41 million in assets. A lot of that's going to be cash, and $2.6 million in accounts receivable, which a lot of that's going to be uncollectible unless we do something with Santana. And so, and then everything else is $41 million in total assets. Next page. Total liabilities at $26.8 million. And our fund balance at 14.3. Any questions about the statement of assets and liabilities? Okay. And then the next page is going to be the breakdown of our accounts receivable. We just talked about the $641,000 in sales tax that we earned in April, which we should be collecting either we've already collected over the next couple of days. Any questions about the accounts receivable? Okay. Any questions overall about the statement, about the financials?
I have a question. Christian, the NUCO tool, that's the ongoing, we decided to proceed on that, right?
I think either Ron or Blanca. Blanca, do you have any more information on Eco Tool, the proceedings of that?
Yes, on that one, the board and the city council authorized filing a lawsuit. So we have, we're in the process of doing that. I can shed further details on that during executive session.
The only question I had, I guess this might be for Brian, is on the personal expenses. It was over, we're at 67,000 or 67% above. So how much I know we're looking to redo our financials, so do we know what the end estimate's going to be?
So we will, before the end of the fiscal year, have kind of a comprehensive budget amendment coming. We're not worried about any of the individual categories in terms of how much money is left to execute the programs. There's more than enough there. We may need to move a couple things around, but we should be okay.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Nope. All right, appreciate it, Christian.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to speak.
We good? All right, if I'll entertain a motion to approve the financials as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Moving on to agenda item C, election of officers for president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. We can take a motion one by one, or if you want to make a different motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we retain the current officers if they're all willing to serve in the same capacity.
A second.
Second. I'm willing to serve in the same capacity. I spoke with Roland as well. He said the same thing. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Oh. Any opposed? Same sign. All right. Thank you, everyone, for serving again. Moving on to the next agenda item, consider approval for the sponsorship for the Edinburgh Police Department National Night Out event.
Yes, we received a request on behalf of Mr. Hiringoven to sponsor the Edinburgh Police Department National Night Out event. This event will be held August 3rd, 2021 at 6 p.m. at the Edinburgh Municipal Park, 714 South Raul Longoria Road in Edinburgh. The request is for $1,000 for sponsorship from the EDC to the Edinburgh Police Department for the event.
We missed out on the Blue Santa, so I figured it'd be a good time to give back.
These are always very good events. They bring out a lot of the community, and of course, nobody's more deserving right now than people on the front line. So I think it's a good one. Have we done it in the past for this event?
I think we've done Blue Santa for sure. I'm not sure on this one.
Based on our records, we didn't find sponsorship for this event. This would be the first time.
Okay. Make a motion to approve.
Second that motion.
All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you to if there's any officers in the building here. All right, moving on to agenda item E. There's a rewording that needs to be here. It's a presentation for the L2 and not consider awarding the bid.
Yes, we do have our city engineer and the architect for the project present for the presentation. This project is part of the 2019 New Series bond projects that were approved back in 2019, and El Tule is up for design and construction.
Good afternoon, Board. Mardoqueo Hinojosa, city engineer. So we did go out for bid for a Tule project that started quite some time back. We did receive a total of 4 bids, ranging from 4.9 to 5.7 million. The architect of record and ourselves, staff, recommend that we go with Holtzman for a contract of 5.2 million.
Excellent. Of all the individuals who submitted bids, why did we choose them?
For timeliness, price and timeliness on working construction projects. So we are behind schedule, and that's kind of what we're looking for.
You have worked with them in the past, have you not?
Yes, we've worked with the second bidder, and we've worked with the first bidder as well.
Okay. And have you always found that, has it been, I guess, without any significant problems and on time when you've worked with Hokemont?
Yes, well, recently we worked on a project at the fire station, and it was done in a very timely fashion.
And good workmanship?
Yes, they have a good software to make sure that the project stays on task, and that's kind of what we're looking at.
How long has the fire department occupied the building that they built?
It was not a full built-out project. It was a remodel, and we were looking at the HVAC improvements. So that was done a couple of years back.
Okay. Have they built a facility that has been occupied for the city?
Not with me. They might have more of a relationship with the architect. I can let him handle one of those questions.
We actually finished Sherryland water supply with them a year ago.
Okay.
And it's been inhabited for a year. They are very organized, and right now with the current market where we have orders that are being delayed and things like that, we need a contractor that's going to do submittals and things early and be organized, especially with their subcontractors. We have worked with 3 out of the 4 that bid, and actually even though some were higher than him, this is still a better contractor than even the ones that came in higher than him.
And the type of work that is being sought under this contract is the type of work they do. So this isn't anything new for them.
No, it isn't. Sherryland Water Supply was close to the same amount. It was 4.5 million, and this is 5.2.
On the design aspect, I know we had made some comments that, for lack of a better term, the building was a little gloomy. I know we had asked if they could maybe use some brighter colors, make it a little bit more lively.
The colors actually can be changed from standard colors that they'll provide as we're getting it constructed. Usually what we present is just a rendering to and it's usually as neutral as you can present, but we can make them more lively as we go during the actual construction with the submittals. But again, we'll have to make those decisions pretty early just because of the current conditions of the market where things have a longer lead time than they've had in the past.
Excellent.
So is it still a 12-month projection for the project to be complete?
We still expect it to be a 12-month projection. The metal building, which is the largest component, they're 2 months behind, but we still expect it to be within originally we're thinking 10, but we added the other 2 because of that.
You mentioned the construction, what's going on with the market today. Is that a hard contract in terms, there's no contingencies built in there for surprises later?
There is a contingency, but the contingency can't be used if they end up, what happens is since they're giving you the price right now, we're finding some that were bid in December, they're having to put in $6,000 for extra electricity, $6,000 for extra metal building upcharges that are happening throughout the market. That money can't be used for that because they're going to have to, once they get the contract from you, they're going to have to tie their prices down. It can be used, as you mentioned, for unforeseens, something maybe in the dirt or something that happens during construction that was unforeseen.
So, go ahead.
So when will we know that? Say we award the contract to them and we hold them to it, then they're going to go out and rebid again?
No, what they do is they close their contracts with their subs. So they already have the bid from their sub. Once you give them the contract, they create their own contract with their subs and close those contracts.
But they can come back and increase the price?
No,
Or 5.2, it's a hard number then?
correct.
Unless there's any unforeseeables.
Yeah. It would have to be major.
Yeah, it's like environmental comes back.
So a price increase on wood would not be an unforeseeable?
Right now, we don't allow for that as an unforeseeable.
Okay, good.
Does the contract have anything in there in the event that they are delayed on the completion of the project?
Yes, actually, we'll work with the city, but if we go with the standard AIA contract, there are LDs written into it, and I think it is inside our spec book as well. I don't remember.
It's $500 a day.
It's $500 a day, but there's this two-stage, and I have to check the specs. Once they've completed and you've moved in, they have 30 to 45 days to make corrections of anything that you find while you're occupying the building. At that point, it goes down to $250 if they go beyond those 45 days. Sometimes they do. They'll take 3 months to fix things. So that's to incentivize them to correct their work as quickly as possible.
I had a question, sir. So on these contractors, they were all graded, or what was the process? And because I see some of the prices are, I mean, $500,000 differences. I just wonder what the process is.
We went back for other cities that they worked with, and that we've worked with, and we've asked for recommendations, and which ones had the best recommendations, and this one was one of them. But like I say, we've worked with the three. We worked with NM, G&G, Holchamont. The only one we've never worked with is with Summit. So we're familiar with all three of them. We just finished some bridge work with NM at the Port Authority, which was government GSA work. And with G&G, we just finished some Edinburg housing work about a year ago with them. So we're familiar with the three of them.
Of the four, who's local?
G&G. I think G&G is the local one. I'm not sure about Summit because we haven't worked with them.
Which one is G&G? I see RG.
They're higher. They're
No,
at
but I
5.
see RG Enterprises. Is that who you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
That is correct.
So RG Enterprises is local. The other three are not. And so who was on the committee, I guess, that selected or rated them? Was that people all within the city, or did you have?
No, we get the recommendation from the architect, and then we concur or not concur with the recommendation.
I see. Okay. And this is an architect that you've used many times before? Oh,
That is him, and yes.
Yes.
That is the architect.
Yes, he is the architect of record.
Okay.
The price differences, what categories does that mostly fall on? Or does it all vary
As far as
between each bid? Someone will do the same project for $500,000 less, is that?
it is a lump sum project.
So there's no itemization, nothing like that?
There is no itemization, correct?
Any more questions? Thank you, gentlemen. Discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
It's only a presentation here.
Oh, sorry, it's only a presentation.
It's
We're
a
not making the
presentation.
motion. Okay, sorry. I saw that there's staff recommending. Okay, sorry. All right. Moving on to agenda item F, consider the approval for sale of real property.
We have a public comment, sorry to interrupt.
No problem.
From Ronnie Laralde with the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay. Oh, yeah, sorry, there you go. So moving back. Sorry, it was under public comments all the way at the beginning.
Good afternoon.
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of...
Good.
Good afternoon. Ronnie Laralde, Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce. No hearing, I apologize for being late. We got here late for our item, but thank you for taking some time to address it. I'm here on behalf of the Edinburg Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors and staff to thank you all on behalf of our Texas Cookem High Stakes in Edinburg Committee. With me today, if they want to join me, I have our Vice Chair of Special Events, Marcia Green. She's with Bird Ogden Auto Group. And I also have Mr. Johnny Rodriguez with Bird Ogden. He's also a past chairman of the board. And with me also from the staff is Nayeli Centeno. She is our Director of Marketing and Tourism. And Christina Barrera, she's our Director of Membership. I just wanted to thank the board, the EDC board, for sponsoring our event this year, Texas Cookem. As you know, it's happening July 4th, this Sunday. And without your support, this wouldn't have been possible. It is a great event. This is going to be the 15th annual event. And we're expecting a very large turnout, and we have a lot of different events happening the day of the event. We also have currently 80 teams signed up, and we have one coming as far as Arkansas. So it is a big tourism event. It draws a lot of eyes in the barbecue world across the nation to Edinburg, Texas. So we're excited to get this going again and have another family fun and free event. As you know, it's 4th of July, so we have a big firework display and of course a lot of entertainment, including our headliner, Easton Corbin. So we're here to present a few goodie bags, and if you can join us in taking a picture for the sponsorship that EDC provided for this great community event, we would love to join you up front.
Thank you, Ronnie, for the presentation. I want to say on behalf of the board, thank you for all that you do. We're proud to be sponsors. It's a great event, something that's been near and dear to my heart. I think the last 7 or 8 years that I haven't missed the event. So anybody else would like to say any words?
I also want to thank Ronnie because Hiron and I are on the Chamber Board, so we do know the amount of time and effort that has gone into planning of this event. I want to thank Bird Ogden for always coming through and being a great sponsor, great partner in our community. And we're all looking forward to it. It's going to be a wonderful event. We really appreciate the fact that the city and the EDC have always been supportive of this. And we know there's competing events all around the valley, but this is a free event, and it is one that's going to have some great entertainment, including, if you like rock and roll, there's also a band at 7:30 in the evening that's a tribute band, Def Legend. And so Def Leppard, in case you're wondering who they paying tribute to. It should be a lot of fun, and so we invite everybody to please come out. But thank you, Ronnie and Nayeli and Christina and everyone at the Chamber, and of course to our sponsors, because without them it wouldn't be possible.
Definitely. Thank you all for all your support. I also want to mention, thank Ron and the staff. Without the city's help, and PD and fire and all the streets and utility guys and girls, this event wouldn't be possible. We've had multiple meetings, and we're looking forward to a smooth and a very fun event. And it'll be a first time we've gathered in a long time, so we're excited and glad you guys could be a part of.
Thank you. Thank you guys for everything.
Thank you. I guess let's take a picture.
concert? No hay tiquetes para el concert. Front row, okay. Damn.
It's actually pretty nice.
Thank you again, Ronnie. Sorry for my confusion there. All right. If everyone's ready, we'll move on to, agenda item F. Consider the approval for the sale of real property at 700 Independence Drive, Lot 11.
Yes, this is a sale of real property at 700 Independence Drive, Lot 11 for the North Industrial Park with Sittens Martin Emergency Group for the amount of $175,000. We do have Mr. Mark Hanna here and a representative from Sittens, Mr. Pat Sittens, on Zoom, in case you have any questions, and I'll be sharing my screen for the presentation. Another note to share is that they are relocating from FAR, and they're retaining 10 jobs, and they're creating 10 new jobs. So that's a good highlight. Mark?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see everyone in person, not behind the Zoom screen. So we are offering $175,000, which is fair market value, $50,000 an acre. It's what the acres in North Industrial Park have been selling for. The end user is going to be Sittens Martin. A little bit about Sittens Martin Emergency Group LLC. They're a licensed dealer for Pierce, Oshkosh, Road Rescue, Wheeled Coach, Frontline, Braun, Deemers, and Skeeter brush trucks. They're located in Texas, Louisiana, New Mexico, Utah, and Nevada. And 21 locations with over 400 personnel. And they're looking to make Edinburg their home. On the property, they're going to have a 12,000 square foot facility with room for overflow parking. Construction hopefully should start if you all can help us with planning and zoning, with the city. We should start before the end of the year, and the project should be completed before first quarter of 2022. And if you all have any questions, Mr. Pat Sittens himself is on the line.
I might just jump in with one other comment from staff here. When we set up the new economic development policy and created some of the incentives, it was a little bit of an experiment. We were unsure kind of what we were going to get this year, but this project fits it perfectly. It's 20 jobs. The hourly positions are going to pay between $15 and $40 an hour. The estimated annual sales of at least $1 million a year. This company has a long history with the city, and we purchased a lot of our fire vehicles from this group. So it's a great addition to the park. We're really pleased with the proposed investment, and looking forward to having them in town here.
Excellent. So this facility would mainly be used to retrofit emergency vehicles?
I believe so. I would rely on Mr. Pat Sittens to answer any of those questions. I don't want to get into misspeak.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Pat Sittens. I'm president of Sittens Martin Emergency Group. And that facility there would be mostly used to upfit fire apparatus as well as doing repairs. We have 21 facilities in 5 states that we work on fire apparatus as far as, working on engines, transmissions, water pumps, anything that could go wrong with the apparatus itself, we would be able to repair it. As Mark said, that we have a current facility over in FAR that we have outgrown, and we need to have a bigger footprint in the valley. And I want to thank Sean Snyder, the fire chief, for kind of turning us on to the EDC and getting this ball rolling, because we have been looking throughout the valley for property, and we just haven't had any property that fit the bill for us. And we're very excited about the location at Edinburg and becoming a community partner.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Sittens.
Well, on a personal note, guys, I'm familiar with Sittens, been in a lot of trucks. Mr. Sittens, I'm a paramedic, 30 years on. Always good vehicles. I've been to the facility in FAR. Just a great business to bring to Edinburg. overall. Thank you for considering Edinburg.
Absolutely.
Good to know that FAR's loss is Edinburgh's gain, right?
Indeed. Anybody have any more questions for Mark or Mr. Siddons? No. Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate the presentation.
Thank you for your time.
All right. If there's no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the sale as stated.
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Moving on to agenda item D. And thank you, Mr. Siddons, for choosing Edinburg.
Absolutely, we're very excited.
Moving on to agenda item D, consider the approval and resolution of approving the corporation plan and the finance pertaining to the complicated issuance of obligations to designated the Edinburgh Economic Development Committee, and so forth.
As worded.
Yes, this is a resolution, as herein read, for approving the plan of finance pertaining the issuance of obligations for the Edinburgh Economic Development Corporation sales tax revenue refunding bonds, taxable series 2021, the tax exempt new series 2021A, and the sales tax revenue bonds taxable new series 2021B. And with us, we have Mr. Andre Ayala from Hilltops Securities for the presentation.
The floor is yours. Sorry.
Thank you, Blanca. This is Andre Ayala with Hilltop Securities. I'm going to share my screen so that we can see the plan of finance presentation. In the audience, you should also have my partner, Chris Vela. He's also part of the financing team for the project, and I believe we have our bond attorney, Stephanie Libby, on the line. I'm sorry, on Zoom. Okay. So what we have here for consideration is a plan of finance for the corporation to consider the issuance of 3 series of bonds. We're going to discuss 3 series of bonds, one which would be a proposed refinancing of existing bonds that the corporation has outstanding, and 2 new series to finance new projects. What we have here, again, is the first one would be the refinancing of the Series 2015 Santana Manufacturing Project bonds. Those bonds were issued back in 2015 as taxable series, first lien sales tax revenue bonds, and they can be refinanced or they can be taken away from the investors as soon as February of 2025. Now, because interest rates are so low, we could issue Edinburgh EDC taxable series 21 refunding bonds and put money in an escrow account that would pay off those outstanding 2015 Santana bonds and save on debt service due to low interest rates and the contribution of a reserve fund that we have in the EDC's bank accounts at the moment. And I'll go through those details momentarily. The second one is to finance some downtown revitalization projects. So we have a multi-purpose facility for $6 million. We have some general downtown revitalization projects for $1 million. And then we have some retail space in a parking garage structure at a tune of $2 million. Now that is a private use project. We have to finance that separately, and that's why we have 2 new series of bonds that are new money, not refinancing. So to recap, what we're going to be discussing here in further detail is the sales tax revenue refunding bonds, and those are the refinancing bonds. Taxable Series 21, those are senior lien, and the purpose of those would be to simply refinance the Santana bonds for debt service cash flow savings. That's it. The second one would be sales tax revenue bonds, tax exempt new series 2021A, and that would be for the multi-purpose facility and the general downtown revitalization projects. And the third one would be a sales tax revenue bond, new series 2021B, and that would be for the retail space in the parking garage structure. As a recap, the Edinburg EDC currently has 3 tiers of debt. We have our senior lien debt, and that is a 2013A Ebony Hills Golf Course project bonds, the 2013B Emergency Shelter Rec Facility project bonds, and the bonds that we're looking at to refinance, the 2015 Santana bonds. Our second tier is the arena. So the Edinburg EDC does contribute to the arena bonds, and we have 2 series outstanding. That is our second tier. The third tier is a new series lien, and we currently have 1 bond out there, which is a new series 2019 bond. The refinancing of Santana would stay within the first tier or the senior lien. You're just replacing 1 bond with another and save on cash flow. The 21A and 21B bonds would be under the new series third lien of the EDC. That's the one that is currently open for new projects. So what are the assumptions that we're going to use in this plan? So on the refinancing side, we assume and we model this as there is no extension of the Santana bonds at all. So the Santana bonds currently will be paid entirely in 2035. So the new bonds would also be paid off in 2035. So they will mirror the term of the existing debt. The cash flow savings have to be taken every single year to stay within the senior lien. So there would be cash flow savings between fiscal years 22 and 35. We currently have a debt service reserve fund that is about $1,467,000 to secure the Santana debt. That reserve fund would be used to pay off Santana debt in advance of maturity in this escrow account, and we would not have to fund a new one because our coverage on the senior lien is really high. In addition to that, we believe that we will be getting an investment grade rating. We're currently on the first lien rated AA- by S&P, and the expectation is that we will keep that rating for the refinancing bonds. That's what allows the corporation to issue bonds at a low interest rate and save money by refinancing the Santana bonds. The assumptions on the other 2 series, which are for the new projects, is that we have 25-year bonds, which is what the corporation did back in 2019. So those will be paid off in August of 2046, both 21A and 21B. The repayment structure would be uniform. So you'll have about the same payment within rounding between fiscal year 22 and 46. Because these are third lien new series bonds, we will have a reserve account for each of those bonds to provide additional security for the bondholders. This would not be rated. These are on a third lien basis. Back in 2019, we did not go to the rating services for this one, and there's no expectation that we could get a rating at this time. However, because our credit has been getting better over time, our sales tax has increased from what it was 2 years ago. There is a possibility that we can get the new series bonds insured. Now what that does is that it drives the interest cost down. So if the insurance is cost effective, then your interest rate could be lower than what we're currently modeling at this time. Now the bottom line for the board to consider is, so what is the budgetary impact of this whole transaction? So adding the Series 2021A for the multipurpose facility and the general downtown projects would add an additional $482,000 worth of debt service to the budget. The parking garage, a retail space, would add another $156,000 to the budget. But we're looking at refinancing the Santana debt, which would provide savings of about $163,000 to your budget. So the net effect of this plan would be an additional approximately $476,000 worth of new debt service obligations to the EDC budget. Now, just a little bit of history here on your sales tax. Back in 2019, when the corporation issued bonds last, our gross sales tax revenues were about $6.3 million. If you take the last 12 months, we're looking at $7.1 million. So there is a significant increase here that allows the corporation to access debt for new projects if it chooses to do so. I did mention the budget, what the impact was on your budget. I do want to stress that after all the obligations that the EDC has, and this is a hypothetical exercise for fiscal year 22, the corporation should still have about $3.5 million for other purposes that are not debt service. And that could be operations, maintenance, infrastructure, incentives, or any other contractual obligation that the EDC may have that is not related to bonds or contracts for the arena debt. I'm going to stop right here, board, and entertain any questions that you may have at this point.
Question. I have a question on this last page on the plan of finance. Did you assume the sales tax revenues to be at the higher level or at the $6 million that it had been before?
I assume the last 12 months, which is about $7.1 million.
Okay.
And no growth from there. So that remains a static assumption.
And the savings that we will get through the refinancing, you said was about $163,000, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
On a cash flow basis between fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 35.
Do we know how much the interest savings will be if we do get insured?
It's hard to say, but as a general rule of thumb, what makes insurance work is roughly 0.25% in interest savings. If you get at least that, insurance generally works. Now, we would have to go through the exercise of sending credit materials to the bond insurer. They will analyze that, and if the credit qualifies, they will propose a pricing. And then we would have to analyze whether the premium makes sense for Edinburg EDC in this case. And if it does, then we would suggest to the EDC to take on the insurance and save on interest expense. But generally 0.25% in most cases what makes insurance work. So if you were to sell bonds at, let's say, 3.5%, and because of the bond insurance, you're able to sell them at 3.25%, it starts making sense.
Excellent. And then on the refi, the A and the B, what were the interest amounts on each one of them?
Okay, so let me keep going on with this plan. I'm going to get into the details of each of the three transactions, and then maybe we can entertain further questions.
Please.
One more question on that.
Sorry.
The 3.4 million that was assumed to be left over for us to use on other projects, I know that these projects that we're talking about now are ones that we believe are going to have a large impact and that are going to take some time to do. But do you believe, Brian and Blanca, that the 3.4 million will be sufficient for us to start other projects that we might want to take on in the next few years?
So Blanca's looked at the budget, and we've talked about this extensively throughout this process because in addition to knowing what that net impact be, there's an opportunity cost here, right? So in her analysis of the budget, between the assumption of the slightly higher level of sales tax without assuming any further growth beyond that ceiling, and the savings we're going to have when those 2013 bond amounts are retired, this is going to be a negligible change. I mean, there's not going to be much impact at all in terms of current year program or staffing or any other budgetary need.
Okay, good. And then really, we do expect that our sales tax will grow. I mean, we've been seeing that over the last 12 months. So you did kind of the most conservative analysis of it?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Excellent. Any more questions before we move on? Please continue, Mr. Ayala.
Thank you. Okay, so let's get into the details of the refinancing. So the refinancing of Santana bonds would take the corporation to issue sales tax revenue refunding bonds, taxable series 2021. Now, why taxable? Because the Santana bonds were taxable. So we're refinancing taxable debt with taxable debt. And it remains in the first lien. The first lien is the one that is going to provide to you the lowest interest cost because that's the one that is investment grade rated and it's the first priority on debt service payments. So what we have here as a preliminary sources and uses of funds is that we would be issuing about $13,580,000 worth of 2021 taxable bonds, and that the corporation would also contribute 100% of the Series 15 bonds debt service reserve fund, which is roughly $1,467,000 that the EDC currently has in the bank. That gives us sufficient funds to set up an escrow account that will now be the security for those Santana bonds. So the Santana bonds will go away. They will not be in your books anymore. And it provides for the payment of financing costs. Just like any bond issue, like when we go and take a home mortgage, we have to pay financing costs. Here is the same concept. You're going to issue bonds. If you undertake this program, you have to pay certain financing costs. We have an allowance for that. Now, the bottom line on the savings is this. The corporation could save roughly $2.3 million worth of cash flow savings between fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 35. On average, per year, we would be looking at about $163,000, give or take. Now, please do keep in mind that a lot of these savings are as a result of the contribution of this reserve fund. So this reserve fund that is currently just sitting there will allow us to reduce the amount of bonds that would have to be issued to refinance the Santana bonds. So that does play a big factor here. But your savings that you could be looking at if interest rates hold until we are able to price these bonds would be about $163,000 worth of debt service per year. Now, we wanted to show you also a sensitivity analysis because this transaction didn't make sense a few months ago, but as we get closer and closer and closer to that optional bond call date of February of 2025, it starts to make more sense. So if interest rates were to stay the way they are right now in February of 2022, your savings could increase by about $125,000, $130,000. But that's assuming that interest rates don't move. If we wait about a year and we say, let's not refinance this Santana bonds now, we think that interest rates are going to remain the same between now and August of 2022, then your savings could increase by about $260,000, $270,000. Now, what is the risk of waiting? If we wait until February and interest rates go up by 0.16 or more, the corporation would be worse off, meaning that the savings that you could achieve at that point in time would be less than what you can achieve now. If we wait a year and say we want to capture more savings just by waiting one more year, but interest rates go up more than 0.28% between now and August of 2022, then we would be worse off again. So as you can see, we can tolerate some movement in interest rates if we wait on this transaction, but not a lot. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that concept. Now, again, if you execute the refinancing today and interest rates hold, we're looking at about $2.3 million worth of cash flow savings, $163,000 per year. But what if interest rates drop between now and when we can lock these interest rates? And if they were to drop 0.25%, then we could be looking at enhancing our savings from $2.3 million to almost $2.6 million, which would mean about $184,000 per year instead of $163,000 per year. But if interest rates go up 0.25% at the time that we are able to lock our interest rates, then our savings could go down from $2.3 million to about $2 million. And our average annual savings could go down from $163,000 to $142,000. Now you may be wondering, what interest rate are you assuming, Andre, on this exercise? Right now, we're assuming that these bonds, AA minus rated S&P bonds, could price at a taxable rate between now and 2035. So this would be a 14-year bond at a 2.26% fixed rate. So we're assuming that is the rate that you can achieve, and hopefully the market doesn't move against the corporation. If the market moves for you, meaning that interest rates drop, then you just increase the savings that we're looking at here. And again, board and staff, I'll stop right here and answer any questions you may have regarding the refinancing.
So, Andre, you're assuming that we would have this, if we approved, it would be nipped up and locked in by August 20, here in the next couple months?
The plan would be to lock the rates on August 17th.
Okay. And then I know the Fed's kind of been all over the place, but with inflation rising, what's your opinion on rates increasing or decreasing over the next 6 months and 12 months?
As a firm, what we're looking is that the pressure for rates to go up is higher than it was a few months ago. So while we can say that, okay, if we wait a little bit, we could achieve more savings, your tolerance is not a lot. So for example, if you were to say, Andre, let's just put this in the back burner and bring it back to us in 6 months, but then I come to you in 6 months, and for inflation, Fed policy, whatever reason, interest rates went up 0.5%, then you're worse off than you are today. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely.
So I wanted to show you that this transaction is working now. It wasn't working a few months ago. It is working now. It could work in the future, but if you wait, you're subject to interest rate risk, and there is, as we all know, a lot of noise about potential rate increases in the future.
So Andre, if you were a betting man, would you say that it's more likely that interest rates are going to go up in the next 6 months as opposed to going down?
I think the general consensus in the industry is that the likelihood of interest rates going up within the next 12 months is higher than they go down. Yes.
Mr. Ayala, is it also true it only works because of that 1.467 reserve fund injection?
I think that's absolutely critical to understand. Yes. Yeah. That reserve fund that the corporation financed with bonds, so those are bond monies that were set aside back in 2015, is critical for this cash flow savings to take place. Just comparing interest rate against interest rate doesn't give you as much as it gives you because of the contribution of that reserve fund. I think that's critical to understand. Yes.
So we're pulling 1.5 million out of the EDC, if you will, for
a refi.
Yeah. It's almost considered a CD. It's don't touch it until something happens later, until you're able to, that 2025 date, right? Is that kind of what we're looking at?
So let's clarify something. The reserve fund that was financed in 2015 cannot be used for anything other than Santana bonds.
So there's no
that
change.
Would remain in place until 2035 if you do nothing. And it will be used for the last payment of that series of bonds.
But Raul brought up a good point, because my first question is, what is our interest rate now compared to what we're trying to pay? We have that somewhere?
Let me give you the exact number. Give me 1 second.
Because I know that the housing market interest rate has been rising. So you're saying a few months ago, when is the housing rate and the loan rate or bond rate, they go hand in hand for the most part? I mean,
the reason why
it's all the Fed, right?
Right. The reason why this is starting to make more sense is because, remember, those 2015 bonds have a 10-year call protection. So when they were sold back in 2015, the corporation told the investors, you can have that investment for 10 years and I cannot take it away from you.
At a certain rate.
At a certain rate, that's correct.
Yeah, what is that rate?
So it's 4.36% that you're paying right now on your Santana debt.
So being that it's lower, we're trying to finance lower. Is it lower only because of the 1.4? What would that number be without the 1.4?
I think you can say that if you're saving, and I hope everyone is looking at that orange box here where it says 2,279,282. And if you subtract the reserve fund injection, your net interest versus interest savings would be $800,000.
At the same 3.63?
Yes.
No.
Well, that's the
No,
percent.
So
would
just, we're going from 4.36 to 2.26 is on the
Correct.
interest, right? And we already have that reserve fund that is being held for the Santana bonds currently, so it's not like, we're not changing that in a sense. That money's been in reserve, it's going to continue to be in reserve, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
You cannot use it for anything else other than Santana debt service.
And the design of that Santana debt service money was for what? Ron, do we know? If we weren't refinancing, was that going to?
The reserve, that, Andre, if I'm correct, that was a requirement. We kind of still, well, we think they thought it was a requirement. Is that correct, Andre? That we may have not actually needed that reserve?
So traditionally, when corporations like Edinburg EDC sell sales tax bonds, there are certain cases where the market would ask to have a debt service reserve fund because we cannot control our sales tax revenue. It's not like a property tax. It's not like a utility rate that we can control if things go bad. And we can say, okay, we're going to increase taxes to pay bonds or increase rates, utility rates to pay bonds. Sales taxes are different. They're subject to economic fluctuations. So in a lot of cases, sales tax bonds have a debt service reserve fund, and that can take, the form of a maximum debt service payment, an average annual debt service payment, or a percentage of those. Chris, Vela, myself, Ron, Stephanie, no one was involved in that transaction back then, but my assumption was that when the Santana bonds were issued 6 years ago, the people that were involved in putting together that transaction thought that it would enhance the credit and the pricing, and they set aside 1 year's worth of reserve funds. Now, today, do you need it? No. That's why I'm saying that if you were to issue taxable Series 21 bonds, our suggestion would be that you go without a debt service reserve fund because we don't think that that's a necessary feature to have in there. That's just money that you're going to be setting aside, earning nothing on interest.
But you said that's on the new projects, but on this project, we do have to have it. And it's basically a cushion for...
You have to have it. That's what you promised to the bondholders.
Okay.
Yes.
Wait, just to clarify, I think there may be some, going forward, there will not be a reserve fund with the new bonds, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
With the new ones.
With the new ones.
But with the one that's being refinanced, it will stay in place, the reserve fund.
Andre?
Yes, so if you choose to do nothing, let's say you tell me today, this financing is not worth our time, we don't want to do the 15 refinancing, you have to keep that reserve fund. Yes.
But I'm saying, if we do refinance it at the lower rate, that reserve fund remains there?
No, we apply
No.
it. We apply it to
Oh,
the
we
refund.
apply it
Yes.
to the,
Yeah.
okay, I see.
We're eligible to apply it and get that credit for it.
So, but either way, we were not going to do anything with that reserve fund because it was tied to...
The
till
previous
20
obligation.
Yeah,
Yes.
for 10 years, right?
That's right.
Okay.
We basically couldn't use it till 2034 if we kept it the same right now.
34, 35.
And the whole purpose of this was to absorb costs, right, for the new projects?
And to save money.
To save money, yeah.
We're saving $800,000 worth of interest. And it cleans up our books. Sorry, Mr. Ayala. Any more questions? Please continue.
Okay. Well, hopefully this one's easier. The multi-purpose facility and the downtown projects would be packaged into one bond series, and that's on the new series. So we're looking at sales tax revenue bond series 2021A. Here we are issuing on a third lien basis. I want to be clear that these 21A, 21B bonds are junior to these Santana bonds and these proposed refinancing bonds for Santana, those are all first lien. So those have lower interest rates, investment grade ratings, different features. This 21A and the 21B bonds are new series bonds. This is a lien that was opened back in 2019. The 21A would be a project fund of $7 million. Now we're looking here at a budget of issuing $7,740,000. And you would be wondering, why is that? Well, we have to have the project fund of $7 million. In this case, we are setting aside a debt service reserve fund because this is a third lien revenue bond. The market will want to have that. And then we have an allowance for financing costs. So that's how we get to the $7,740,000 budgeted bond amount for 21A. This would be a 25-year repayment bond. So the final payment is in 2046. The budgeted interest rate, and this would be tax exempt, is a 3.75%. Our annual payments would be about $482,000. And then the total debt service net of the reserve fund, because remember that reserve fund would be applied towards the last payment, is about $11.5 million. So if you were to finance, again, the multipurpose facility and the general downtown projects, we're looking at issuing on a tax-exempt basis $7,740,000, give or take, at 3.75% fixed rate for 25 years, and $482,000 new debt service to the EDC budget. The parking garage retail space is a $2 million project. Now this one is taxable. So we would have to have a bond issue of $2,275,000, that's our budgeted amount, to have a $2 million project fund. We have a reserve fund set aside for 1 year's worth of payment and an allowance for financing costs. This is a 25-year term, again, just like the 21A, final payment in 2046. This one is a taxable rate, so taxable rates, as you all know, are higher. So we're budgeting a 4.7% fixed taxable rate. And our annual debt service payment is about $156,000 for the 25-year repayment period. I'm going to stop here and answer any questions board or staff may have regarding 21A and 21B.
Anybody? These are pretty straightforward.
You want to walk through the timeline, Andre?
Okay. So just real quick, you have here on this at this meeting, you have Hilltop Securities, Chris Vela, and myself, and then Stephanie Leiby is on the Zoom meeting as well in case we have any questions for our legal counsel. And the team that we have here is the same team that worked on the 2019 transactions. Now, what are the next steps? So if this board wants to move forward with a plan of finance, you would direct us, your staff, and bond attorneys to implement the plan. The City Council will be ratifying this plan at their next meeting, which would be next week. And then we would put together bond documents and offering documents, go through the credit review with Standard & Poor's on the senior lien bond, the refinancing one, and with the bond insurer on the new series bonds, 21A and 21B. And then we would come to you, board, with a final pricing on August 17th of this year. At that point in time, you would have in front of you the final results of the refinancing transaction and the final results of the 21A and 21B bonds. And then roughly 30 days later, the corporation gets the funds for the Santana refinancing and the new projects. So in big picture, this is the timeline we have. There are a lot of steps in between that staff, council, and financial advisor work on, but these 4 steps are the ones that from a board perspective, the critical ones.
Sorry, I have one question. I know both of these A and B are non-rated, but I'm not too familiar on bonds. So at any point in time, let's say we're or on-time payment for 5 years, does it become rated at any time? Can we refi and kind of do what we did right now to lower the interest rate?
Great question. And I'm going to go back a little bit here to remind everybody of where we are. Okay, so the new series bonds, 21A and 21B, are not rated because we don't believe that at this point in time, we could achieve an investment grade rating. Now, it doesn't mean that these bonds are not going to pay. It just means that they would not achieve a rating that would be investment grade, and thus something that in the end would lower your interest cost. So we're better off just going at it non-rated and trying to get insurance. Now, insurance can be achieved without a rating. That's a separate issue. The insurance, if it works, lowers your interest cost. Now, you asked me, can this bond be rated in the future? You could, but once you issue the bond, you wouldn't go out and rate it. You would rate new bonds. So let's say that we move forward, it is 2030 now, and you want to issue new debt 9 years from now, and your third lien is at a point that it could be an investment grade rating, you would rate those future bonds at that point in time, but not necessarily the 19 or this 21A and 21B bonds. Can you refinance at a future date? You asked that question too, and the answer is yes. So if interest rates are lower in the future than they are now, and the mathematics work, just like they're working for the Santana debt, you could refinance the 21A, the 21B, or even the 2019 bonds in the future. Now, those refinancings would have to be done on a new series third lien basis, because remember that your senior lien is closed and your second lien is closed as well. So the only lien that we have open at the Edinburg EDC is a third lien. Does that answer the question, or am I confusing everybody here?
No, that answers my question. I'm not sure if anybody needs more clarification.
I have a question, and it's more for the team, the city team. Obviously, we're making short-term decisions, but have long-term impact in terms of borrowing or projects for future. Different boards will come and go, and we're sitting, none of us were here, I believe, for the Santana decision or the Arena decision, and that's impacting decisions today in terms of what we do. Have we looked at it in its entirety to look at, okay, what does 25, look like? We keep adding debt from past decisions that we have to continue to live with. And as this board, we're going to add more debt, right, to our budget that may influence decisions next year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So could we get to a point where we can't do any new projects because of debt? So think of a fiscal government, and, today's decisions by lawmakers are impacting our kids. And so we're doing the same. Correct?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, any thoughts on, is that the path we want to take regarding these decisions? And have we looked at the long-term impact? We might not even be here. More than likely we won't. But it will impact Edinburg and the city and the taxpayers. And is that 5% or half a cent sales tax, is that going to, can that ever be changed? So if that goes away, what happens?
We don't have a budget.
Well, but so then what happens with the debt service? Who takes that on?
Yeah, well, yeah, I understand your point, but I think everything, the projects that we take on and the savings now are for decisions made when we weren't here. But the assumption is always that the city will be growing and the tax base grows, so it all gets absorbed with the growth. So,
and I think that we have good interest rates now, and it looks very appetizing to do something now with refinancing.
Yeah, and I guess, Mr. Ayala, is there a difference between the EDC taking on the debt versus the city taking on the debt? Is there savings in either a city taking it on versus us? In terms of a parking garage and in terms of the other project listed?
Well, just go ahead, Andre.
No, go ahead, please.
I was just going to remind everybody that in terms of that sharing, so the facility will be at approximately 50%. So the city's also assuming a debt service on that. And then from the garage, it was an 8 million to 2 million ratio. So, and those ratios came from the function of the governmental purpose, what's justifiable. And that's why, on the parking garage at $2 million, that's why that is taxable, because that's going to be a direct economic development, input to that. Kind of to your other comments, obviously, I summed it up through my analysis before we really got to the team is it responsible to do it? Because we've looked at debt service ratios a lot. There's a lot of factors that came into this. Obviously, right now, from the EDC, from the City Council, and really the community, the downtown area is such a focus right now. And part of that is because we're just right in this lull between the county courthouse not being reopened. But once it does, this investment will theoretically create the catalyst for sales tax growth. Our downtown is one of the poorest sales tax downtowns, probably in South Texas. So, and again, theoretically, with the influx of people and the other private investment, this will be the return on investment for that. So, if we're not doing direct job creation, it has to be good probability of return on investment in economic development. So, by all the indicators possible, it shows that this will do that. So, again, we're kind of in that lull. And then obviously what really made us more confident about this is just evaluating the sales tax growth. So that's really, we took a very conservative measure, and it just so happens that the conservative measure happened to be, in a big portion of it, being within the pandemic. So, even though we're broadcast or forecasting at level, all signs point to, we're really going to do a significant increase. So looking at the data, we feel good, because I know in individual discussions, one priority of this board was, as long as we don't impact the potential for incentives and other projects. So, and again, long-term with some debt service rolling off and assuming this, it's really going to be pretty much a net zero game after a few years. So that's what that boils down to. So, but obviously, the decision of doing it is based on the priorities that you direct. So we just brought forth the most responsible option in doing it. So
I definitely hear you on that. I think I've probably harped on Blanca and Brian the most as far as debt goes, and trying to break it down and all that. But that's just my normal background or whatever. But I think when we, us as a board, we have to make the good faith effort. Say, hey, look, we've looked at the strategy, looked at the plan, and we're choosing this because we believe it's going to be the catalyst to revitalize and bring in all the sales tax and create the the wow factor, for lack of a better term. And I believe all the other previous boards acted in good faith too. And sometimes things don't go well in business, and sometimes they do. But I'm hoping that in 20 years, and that board comes to our decision and says, hey, look, I'm glad they made this decision. So that's why I believe in the project.
And I can add my 2 cents for what it's worth to you on this, just compared to what other economic development organizations have at their disposal, Texas and other places. We have all the tools we need right now. These projects, look at this financing and compare it to past decisions made in taking on debt to invest in a particular company. And to me, this is kind of apples and oranges. We're investing in a place that's going to have a return here. It's not a bet on one particular company. So, that's one way I would look at it. The other thing I'd say just about the tools in the toolbox, as we like to say, the only thing we're really missing right now as an organization is spec property. We get a lot of calls, asking for, do you have any existing warehouse space? Do you have this? And if that's something the board wants to get into, we can still do that. I mean, there's plenty of room in our finances to get into that a little bit. And so that's in terms of, staff's wish list for running, a really high caliber economic development corporation in the state. That's really all that's missing right now. And given the fact that we can explore some of that in the future and still do this, that to me, I don't think the opportunity cost here is great on this end.
Brian, I think that's a great point. And in terms of being organic priority from the board, because truly all we really voted for is things that staff has brought to us. Nothing has been organic from the board to y'all. And I think we can get to that in terms of property purchases defined specifically for something versus projects or whatever that the city deems necessary, which are important. But some organic projects that starts here and it's taken to y'all to analyze so that we can make a decision on versus constantly coming from there here.
And Raul, I think it's kind of chicken and the egg, because on the one hand, you want to have companies come, but they may not come unless certain infrastructure is already there, right? And so, I mean, I know that the downtown area has been one. We've all talked about that at our retreat and even before that, right? That we want to see that revitalized, because with that, we do believe it'll draw interest in the city of Edinburg. And I agree. I think the projects do need to come from us to them, but right now, I think there's some great ideas on how we start with the nuts and bolts, and the nuts being the downtown area. And I know, I mean, I don't, when I was in the legislature, you always were very nervous about tying the hands of future lawmakers, but there are some projects that if you don't move on, you never will see growth, right? And so this one seems to be one of those where if we don't move on this, then what we want to see in 10 years may never happen because we're not doing enough to move the downtown area.
Yeah,
And I think on the Santana one, I mean, that one, it was not a good deal, and we're all now having to deal with it, right? But saving money with a lower interest rate and having money that's in reserves now being applied to it, which was still, we weren't using it, we couldn't touch it, now at least it'll go towards this. To me, that's an easier one. That's a much easier one. If we think that the parking garage and the multi-center, those developments are going to spur activity, then I think that's the $1 million question for us.
It absolutely, it works, but there's a lot of partners that need to participate in that in order for it to work. Downtown business owners, the county has the property and they have to somewhat gift it to us, if you will, for us to use. There's a lot of pieces that go beyond approving a parking lot.
Yep.
I mean, there's many pieces. And so I attended one of the meetings for the downtown, and not everybody's wowed about getting downtown. There's some business owners who want to stay the way it is. We heard those comments from public comments, and it is the right thing, and we're going to have to make some tough decisions. And we may even have to change code, as Brian, you alluded at the meeting. And there's some tough decisions. We're not going to please everybody, but there is going to be a right thing for us to do. But there is a lot of people or partners that have to align in order for a parking garage to work. And it's going to, obviously we want it to work, but a lot of things have to align for it to work. Because the last thing we want is a parking garage that goes unused. I mean,
I agree.
I think this board has been pretty good about voting unanimously on projects, because we all see the need and we all have the same vision for Edinburg. And I think the staff has been tremendous in their recommendations, because if we didn't agree with what the staff was saying, we'd have some abstaining votes. And I think that most of our votes have been unanimous in that we've been able to come together and agree with what the staff is recommending to us. So I'm comfortable with that. And I think, like Raul is saying, we're having to face the demons of the past, but that is something that's inevitable. We still have to deal with it. That's why we're here. And I think that moving forward, we need to see what's in the best interest for the city, not be shy about approving new projects that's going to be better for Edinburg. So,
I really do think, and Veronica, you mentioned it, but you know, the workshop, the priority workshop that we had at the Birding Center, that's what really shaped this, and it was pretty vocal. You guys were pretty vocal in shaping your priorities, and I think that for one other big thing, it really helped us define a selling land and buying land strategy. So that really cleared that up, which helped us a lot. But it was pretty overwhelming that everybody was all in with downtown. So yeah, we're just carrying out, you know, what you said as priorities, because that was a great thing. We need to continue to do that, you know, at least maybe a couple times a year, but to keep the priorities in check.
Yeah.
But yeah, you mentioned the workshop. That was a great.
Yeah, I missed the workshop, but even from the previous time I was on the board, my goals were always downtown, airport, and some quality of life stuff. So we've been touching that. But Brian took the words out of my mouth. When I look at it as the prior bonds really only benefited one company, and this actually benefits the entire city. So it wasn't to me, it wasn't even a question, because those were bad. That was bad debt that we're rolling into and paying for something that'll affect the future of downtown, which was one of my goals, and of course, the airport and the industrial park. So I'm all for it, but I understand your point, Raul. But I think that we have to. You have to have some faith that we're going to move forward, and like Ron said, we're trying to make everyone make responsible decisions and know that Edinburg's going forward. We're not looking back, and it'll be a different place in 10 years.
So on the parking garage, is there movement in terms of getting the partners all on the same page?
There's a couple other updates. I'd like to provide an executive,
Okay.
but I'll give you some details to that. We have some options. So.
Okay, good.
Mr. Ayala, were you going to continue with your presentation? Or was...
No, this was the last item, the calendar, and again, happy to answer any questions you all may have. Again, my partner is is in the audience, and we have our bond attorney here as well in case this board has any further questions as you consider this plan of finance and staff and ourselves to implement.
So, Mr. Ayala, while I know it's only a few months to September, but this is a real tight timeline. And assuming we don't meet the timeline, I mean, or what I was going to ask, what happens if the interest rates change between now and the time we complete the timeline?
So the refinancing could go away. I think that's a possibility. That's why I wanted to show you here some numbers, and it can get very dense in terms of numbers, but I wanted to disclose to this board that if interest rates were to go up, we could wind up in a situation where our refinancing doesn't work. If that were to happen, then you would just not issue any refunding bonds because it wouldn't make any sense, even with the contribution of the reserve fund, to refinance the debt, and we would just wait and see what happens later. As far as the new projects, we are budgeting a 3.75% tax-exempt rate on one bond and a 4.7 taxable rate on the other. Could those rates be higher between now and when we lock those rates? Yes, and that would just increase the debt service payment on an annual basis. Now, we do believe that the budgeted rates that we have are, if they don't have a lot of cushion, they have some cushion. I'm positive in the bond insurance issue that I want to explore for the corporation. There's no cost to you exploring that bond insurance question. That could reduce our payments, but there's no telling with interest rates. So if they were to go up, you could be looking at potentially higher annual payments. Now, interest rates going up from 3.75 to, let's say, 3.9% are not going to move the needle in the sense that it doesn't make the project not feasible. It's just a little bit higher interest payments going forward. But I think we all have to understand that that's a risk that we always take when issuing bonds. The market could change on us between now and then.
Yeah, and actually, because it's a several-pronged process, it's going to always be about 3 to 4 months out. We've got to approve it, and the city's got to approve it, then you got to go through all the, and so to lock in the rate, if we don't do it now, then we're looking at another few months down the road, and then another more few months down the road. So that's why I was.
I do want to mention that one of the directives we got from staff's leadership is to lock in the rates as soon as humanly possible. Now, we want to take all the steps, of course. We don't want to skip any steps. So the first one is to come to you as a board and show you the plan, get your direction. If you like the plan and want us to implement, we will go to the city council and show them the plan and have them ratify it. And then the fastest we can take this to the marketplace and lock interest rates for you, and hopefully the refunding to work as well, would be mid-August. At that point in time, you would be locking your interest rates, and then we would just be waiting about a month to close the transactions. But we're looking at about a 45 to 50-day period between now and when we can lock those interest rates.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Vela, is there anything you would like to add? Or is Andre doing a great job, which I know he is?
Sir, you might, I'm sorry.
The only thing that I can add, and I was thinking while the discussions and some of the questions that the board had been brought up, which were very good questions, quite frankly, and very thorough questions and very deliberate questions as far as the board is concerned. I commend you for that. But one of the things that I'm old enough to remember is the development of the valley. And some of the questions revolved around sales tax and its growth. I can assure you that a year ago in March of 20, we were very, very, very concerned about what was going to happen to sales tax revenues. Mm-hmm. And much to our surprise, honestly, we actually saw sales tax numbers rise. And it seems like the pandemic had a very small or negligible impact on what people were doing and buying, goods. So we were very pleasantly surprised when we saw what happened to the revenues. But if I may just kind of rewind quite a few years back in the Valley economy and some of the ratings approaches that the rating agencies would take. The Valley was known for three things. It was known for its citrus, it was known for its winter tourists, and it was known for its trade with Mexico in terms of revenues and things of that nature, especially sales tax. Some cities like McAllen had the benefit of bridge revenues that translated along those lines. But I also recall how much of an impact the peso devaluations had on sales tax revenues here in the Valley, and how much we depended on explaining to the rating agencies the role of the 1015 onion and agriculture and citrus and tourism. But really what a lot of these boards, including yourselves, realized was that the economies needed to be diversified. And I think what we're seeing today in the valley is exactly that, a diversification of the economy. We no longer have that same dependency that we had years ago on the peso trade, which was around 65% of the sales, especially along the communities along the border, and 35 local. Well, guess what? Now it's the other way around. Those percentages have almost mirrored itself on the other side. So what I have seen in this last few, especially in this year and in these past years, is a total diversification of the economy to where a lot of people are moving in. Things have really, really grown. Commercial development has really, really grown. But I've also noticed one thing that I think separates Edinburg, the city of Edinburg, from other valley cities, and something that you have a great future towards, and that is you have a tremendous area to grow north, where a lot of the other communities are all locked in. You have a great future if you manage it correctly and going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And sir, if you don't mind stating your name for the record?
Absolutely. My name is Chris Vela with Hilltop Securities.
Mr. Vela, I have a question.
Thank you, Mr. Vela.
In talking, obviously you have a lot of experience. I appreciate the words you said. But something you said kind of popped in my head because it was one of the first things that I thought about. We always hear the term bubble. I think that with the pandemic, there was a lot of incentives. A lot of people were incentivized. A lot of that stuff is ending. Has anyone considered that? Is there an impact to that? Is there, because the numbers, people worked less actually. There was people laid off, but there was a lot of incentives that I think was a major part of the growth in numbers. And a lot of that is going to be cut off now. You've been around for other bubbles in finance.
And that is a good point, and it's something that we've often considered as well, and something that's going to remain to be seen, whether those incentives and how much of an impact they're going to have on your sales tax. But it's a good point, sir. Great question. Great statement.
But I do want to also add that, and I'm not just here stomping for the university, but as an employee of the university, I have seen how much our university has grown. We're over 32,000 students now, and we're continuing to grow. And it's not only creating more impact in education, but we're also hiring a lot more people, a lot more faculty, and a lot of professionals, for instance, in the medical school. Very high-paying jobs. Those are individuals that are working here, shopping here, dining here, and we're going to continue to grow. And I think that yes, the bubble we saw, the incentives that came through with stimulus monies, that's a one-time deal, right? But we're also seeing now Congress saying we're also going to have infrastructure changes, and we're going to be building. That's going to create jobs, and we're going to continue to create jobs. UTRGV will continue to create jobs, and good-paying jobs. So I do think there's a lot that's positive in the future of Edinburg. We're spread out with campuses everywhere, but our largest campus is here in Edinburg.
And one thing is that every day during the pandemic, with the courthouse closed and UTRGV closed, 30,000 extra people were not in Edinburg spending their money. So hopefully with everything reopening, any stimulus either offsets or we see a growth, in my opinion.
We've had a lot of things that have impacted the economy in Edinburgh as well as McAllen and other areas. Is that the bridge has been closed too. People have been crossing from Mexico, and once that opens up, I think it's going to just deliver more money towards the economy. So yeah, there's a lot of things to look forward to.
And you mentioned the downtown, or you mentioned the Mexico. Well, while we would have loved to have had more of the Mexican shoppers, we didn't have them as much as McAllen did, for instance, because of their downtown area and people come across. But in times like this, we haven't been hurt as much.
Absolutely.
And so what we see in terms of sales revenue, it's kind of a constant. It's not based on is there something going on in Mexico that's going to impact us? Sure, Mexico impacts us, but not to the same degree as it might some of the other cities.
Right, yeah, we're a little more self-sufficient on the sales side.
You know, in this, one word that comes out of the pandemic was this identification of businesses being essential or non-essential. So just by the industries of that metric, our city had the largest volume of essential, you know, and that's just the makeup of the city. So it's very naturally resilient. You know, all those essential workers live here, shop here, and so that's about as resilient as you can come. So we do have some natural things around us that helped.
Indeed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you,
Vela.
Mr. Vela.
Any more comments for Mr. Ayala or staff or anybody?
Well, just one thing to consider, that date of August 17th. So if the EDC should proceed in this manner, the August meeting would be rescheduled to align so that on August 17th, we have both an EDC meeting, either at the 4 o'clock or maybe one little buffer by doing it maybe at 3 p.m., and then the city council at 6. So like that, you'd kind of have this two-tiered approach to locking in the final action there. So just something to consider on the schedule of events.
That would be August 3rd, correct?
August 17th.
Oh, it would be on the 17th, exactly.
Meaning we're going to move your regular meeting.
Okay, I see.
To the 17th.
Yes, it's already in your email.
Okay, great. All right. If there's no other comments, I will entertain a motion for agenda item G. I'm entertaining a motion for agenda item G for
I make a motion to approve the item as presented.
I'll second it.
All right. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Moving on to agenda item H, consider an approval of resolution relating to the establishing of corporate intention to reimburse itself for prior lawful expenditures.
So this is another administrative action in relation to the sales tax revenue bonds.
Okay.
It's basically a convoluted way of saying if you have to spend money on anything related to the bond project, you can pay yourself back with the bond proceeds.
Okay. Excellent. All right, so I'll entertain a motion on agenda item H.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. If there's nothing else to discuss in open session, I will entertain a motion to enter executive.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. It is 5:54 p.m. We'll be entering executive session. It's 6:39 p.m. I'll entertain a motion to re-enter open session.
So moved.
No? All right, it's 6:39 p.m. There's no items for consideration in executive. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment if there's no other business.
So moved.
All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Cool. Right. Sorry, I'm going to sign that, and I got it.